To make these roses, you'll need the following supplies. I like to work on a surface of thick craft foam. You'll need some cardstock in red and green, around 175 GSM is best. You'll need pliers, 16 gauge floral wire, a glue gun, green floral tape, and either a paper curling tool or a plastic knife, both will work. So it's optional to use this thick craft foam, but I got this at Michael's and it's about 1/4 inch thick, and I find that it is just a nice surface to work on when I'm making these flowers. If you use one of those ball tools like I was showing there, it makes a good surface to press the paper down onto, and it's just nice to work on. So to make each flower, you'll need 4 of the petal shapes, 1 of the star shape, and then 1 of this shape. So I'm going to get started by taking 1 of those petal shapes and my plastic knife. Throughout the video, I will be using the plastic knife, but this Leah Griffith tool from Fiskars works great also, but I know not everyone has that, so I'll be using the plastic knife, which most people can probably use. So the technique we'll be using throughout this video to curl the petals is to hold the paper between your thumb and the plastic knife. You can either curl it away from you or towards you, but firmly hold the paper against the knife and then pull it along the edge of the knife to give a curl to the paper. So just go around to each petal and do the same thing. The more you angle the paper and the knife, the more it will be curled. So this is the bottom layer of the rose, so the petals will actually be going downwards on this piece. It's the only one like that, so it will look like this. So once I have all those curled, I'm just going to go through and add some curling just to the very edges and add some variation to each petal to make it look more real. So this one I'll curl down. Then this next one I'll curl up. And I'm not following any specific pattern here, I just want variation so they don't all look the same. This one curled down. And we're just using the same technique we did to curl the petals in the first place, we're just doing it right on the very edge. So just go around and add some variation to the petals and make them look how you'd like them to. And I'd recommend looking at a picture of a real rose that you'd like to mimic. It just helps you throughout the process to see how the petals should be shaped and formed. So this is what it ended up looking like. So now I'm going to take that floral wire and I'm going to take the very end of it and my pliers and just bend that into an L shape. This will allow the wire to stay put inside the flower so it won't come off. So it looks like this. Now I'll just take that petal piece and lay it on my foam, and then I'll punch a hole through the center with the wire and then slide that petal up to the top. Now I'll add some glue along that bent portion of the wire and glue that in place on the petal. You want to make sure that's really well attached, and it should look like this for this bottom petal. So moving on to the next petal, from here on out all the rest of the petals will be curling up, so just keep that in mind as you're doing this. So I'm going through and curling all the petals just like we did before, but this time I'm curling them a little more so it's a little more closed. So just repeating the same process as before on each of these petals. Once I've done that, on this set I'm going to go through and bend right where they're attached to the main piece just to make them curl in a little more. Next, I'm going to go through, just like before, and add some curling to the very edges and some variation. I think this is really the secret to making the rose look more realistic, making all the petals look a little bit different so they're not all identical, because in nature things aren't all the same, so it helps if there's variation. So it looks like this at this point. Now I'm going to move to the next set of petals, and this one I want to be even more closed up. So I'm just going to do the same thing, but trying to curl the petals a little more towards the center. Then once all the petals were curled, I'm just going to go through and bend towards the base of each petal once again. And then go through and curl all the edges also. So now I'll go through and curl them more towards the center. Again, I want this one to be more closed up than the last layer. So it looks like this. And then finally, I'll take this last layer here and start curling the petals just like before. I want this one to be the most closed up, so keep that in mind. So this one will go together different than the rest. So at this point, I'm just going to take a petal right here on the side, and I'm going to add some curls so the two sides kind of curl inwards. Then I'm just going to take that piece and pinch it together like this and kind of roll up the edges so it creates kind of this triangular roll like you see on a rose in the center. So I'm just going to shape that until I like it. Then I'll put glue on the edge right here and glue that roll together. So once that's firmly attached, I can let go of it. Then I'm going to take a petal that's across from it. I like to use this petal right here. And I'm going to be wrapping this petal around it. I'm just going to adjust that until I like how it looks. Don't want it to be too closed up, but also not too open either. And before I glue it, I'm just going to add some curl to the edges of that piece. Then when I put that back together, you can see that that added kind of a different look to the petal and made it look more realistic. So once I've decided how I want to position it, I'm going to put glue on both sides of this petal. And then very carefully bring that back together and press it in place. Please be very careful as it's easy to burn your fingers with the hot glue at this point. I'm going to add a little more glue on this side. And I'm going to hold that in place until it's completely secure. Once that's done, it's time to add another one of the petals. Doesn't matter which one you add, just whichever one you feel looks best. So I'm going to add this one here, and I'm going to add some curling to the edges and then glue that in place. Then move on to the next petal. Add some curling to the edges. And then position it. And glue it in place. And just make any adjustments you'd like. And then finally we'll add that last petal. And first I'll add some curling to the edges. So I like how it looks like this, so that's where I'm going to add it. And I'll just glue that in place. And I'm just going to go through and reshape some of the petals and just adjust things until I'm happy with how it looks. So now the center of the rose is finished, and we'll be adding it to this second to the top layer of petals. So the key when you add this is to offset this with the petals on the next layer. So each of the petals on each layer is not lined up, they're offset. So just decide how you think it looks best. And then when you're happy with it, put some hot glue on the bottom. Make sure that you're generous with this. And then press that in place firmly until it's attached. So it ends up looking like this. And the next step is to just go through and decide what petals you want to be closer to the center of the flower. So I'm going to glue this petal here to one of the petals on the center. I'm going to glue the next petal in place right against it. And again, yours will probably be different. There's not really an exact process to follow, it's just kind of looking at the rose and deciding what would look best. So I'm going to glue this petal in place right here. Add some curling to this petal. I'll glue this petal in place here. So on this layer, you kind of want to strike a balance between it being completely closed up and just a little bit open. And I'll glue this last one in place right here. So now that that's finished, it looks like this. And we'll be adding this to the next layer, just like we did before, offsetting the petals and just deciding where it looks best and then gluing it in place. Make sure you press on the bottom to make sure everything is getting glued in place. So it looks like this. And I'll just make some adjustments to the petals. And this layer we want to be mostly open. So now it's ready to attach to that last bottom layer. And it will go on just like this, just like before, offsetting the petals. So just decide where it looks best. Make sure that you use quite a bit of glue when you do this to make sure that it stays attached. Then press that in place. Make sure that you press on all the areas on the bottom of the flower to make sure everything is secure and staying attached. So the flower itself is finished at this point, and it looks like this. And now we'll be attaching this star shape here. But first I'm going to go around and add some curling to each of these, and these are even easier to curl than the petals. And again, you'll want to look at a picture of a real rose as you do this, just to get an idea of how it should look. So once again, I'm not curling them all the same. Some curl out and some curl in. So it looks like this. So now I'm just going to take that and lay it on the foam, and then take the floral wire and punch it through the center. Slide that up to the flower, and then just decide where you want it to be. Unlike the other layers, this one you don't want to offset. You want to line up each green piece with each petal on that bottom layer of the flower. So now I'm just going to make some adjustments. And it looks like this. So finally we have this last green piece here, and I'm going through and adding some curl to that piece as well. If you find that this piece is too tricky, you can always skip it and just wrap the stem in floral tape at this point. That works also. But I'm going to take this piece and kind of curl it up so it makes kind of a cone shape, with the smallest part being at the bottom and it's more open at the top. So I'll add some glue to the end to secure that in its shape. And I'm going to take the bottom of it and kind of scrunch it up so it fits better against the stem of the flower. So I'm going to add a little glue to the top of that and quickly slide it up against the flower. Then I'll add some glue to the bottom of that cone shape. and very carefully squeeze that together against the stem. Now that that's attached, we're going to move on to the last step, which is wrapping everything in floral tape. So the trick to using this floral tape is to stretch it as you work. That activates the waxy stickiness and makes it stick to itself. So you can either start wrapping here at the bottom of that last shape we added, or you can wrap at the top of that, which is where I am going to, so it's right at the base of the flower. So I'll just add a little bit of hot glue to start it off. And this is the trickiest part, just getting it started, so don't get frustrated if it doesn't work at first. Just keep trying and stretching it as you go so it will stick. And then just very carefully keep wrapping that. And once you've wrapped it a little ways, it will stay in place and it will be easy to work with. So if you're having trouble with things moving around or sliding down as you're wrapping, make sure that as you wrap the tape, you push up on the piece so it goes right up against the base of the rose. And just keep wrapping on down the stem as tightly as you can. So I made it to the end, and once you do that, you'll want to just cut the tape and then wrap it around tightly, just right around the bottom like this, so it will stick to itself. And here is the finished paper rose. I hope you enjoyed making these as much as I did, and thank you so much for watching this tutorial.